This week's episode of Steve's Outdoor Adventures is brought to you by Pendleton Ammunition, loading ammo, one round at a time. This week we're headed back out to Chama, New Mexico for my annual elk hunt. This is a place that I have hunted several times over the last 5 years, and I keep going back there because the elk hunting is just that good. This is a premier elk hunting property, and I didn't necessarily want to come out there alone. So I invited a good friend of mine, Ben Fleming, to join me on the hunt. Ben has never been on an elk hunt before.
Spent years dreaming about going on an elk hunt, and I'd been to Chama a couple years before to go on a mule deer hunt with another friend of mine, and Steve gave me the invite to go out with him last fall, and I was absolutely excited to go with him. It was such a beautiful place.
Ben had been waiting for the new Bergara Premier Series approach rifle to be completed. And sure enough, the day before he left, it was done, and he was able to bring it out with him on the hunt. The first morning, Ben's first elk hunt. And I'd requested that we be paired up with Nevin Shippey. He's a longtime guide on the ranch, and he knows the place inside and out. During the late season, Nevin and I both agreed that we needed to get up on a high ridge in the central part of the ranch where we could see a lot of country and glass open ridges and valleys and look for these elk, because it's post-rut. The bulls are wore down. They're trying to put on as much weight as they can before winter arrives, and they're out feeding heavy until the sun gets up, and then they're going to make their way to a bedding area. And we really felt like if we were up high and glassing a lot of country, we would have an opportunity to find a big bull.
Smaller bull's on the right, bigger bull's on the left, but he's not that big.
Over the next 30 minutes or so, we saw a fair number of elk and about a half a dozen branch antlered bulls, but none that were good enough for the first morning shooters. So we worked our way up to another high ridge and glassed some more breaks, trying to spot bulls moving between feeding and bedding areas.
There's a bunch of elk in the bottom and they're feeding through this gap right here. We're watching them trail out about 600 yards from us.
We covered a lot of country and we just didn't turn up any more elk. It's December 3rd and there's no snow, which means there are no elk migrating out of the high country. That's bad for us. That means this is going to be a very dirty, nasty, tough hunt, and we're going to have to work hard if we're going to fill our tags with some big bulls. But this property literally borders the Sargent's Wildlife Management Area, and just a couple of miles away are over 1,000 head of elk that are ready to migrate. They want to head to winter range. Even a little bit of weather, even a skiff of snow could get the migration started. After what we consider a slow morning hunt, Nevin really wanted to set up and watch a meadow in the northeastern part of the ranch that borders the wildlife management area. Elk traditionally come here to feed in the evenings, so we set up here in a small blind that offered a great viewpoint. Me, I'm not much for sitting anywhere. That's why I'm a bad whitetail hunter. But if you want to be successful in elk hunting, you learn how to adapt. And anytime elk will come to you, that's a good thing. We had been there about a half hour when the first bull showed up. He was too small, but an elk nonetheless. But as darkness closed in, more elk started to appear. A group of cows and calves fed out in front of us. Then a small group of bulls fed out behind us. Unfortunately, they were all too young and far too small.
Two little bulls.
This is the future of elk hunting on this ranch. And as a rule of thumb, you can't shoot a 6x6 on the last day if you fill your tag with a 5x5 on the first day. And as the sun set on Ben's first day of elk hunting, we had probably seen around 100 elk and at least a dozen branch antlered bulls over the course of the day. And that's not a bad start to an elk hunt.
This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures has been sponsored by Bergara Rifles, a passion for precision, every barrel, every rifle. This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures has been sponsored by Burris Optics. Find what matters.
The next morning we set up to catch the elk I'd seen the night before, feeding their way back to their bedding area. Honestly, we had no intention of actually hunting them that morning. There's a big wide open valley that we would have had to cross, and in the morning there's just no chance of getting within rifle range of them. I did wish that we'd stayed at the cowboy camp the night before, because the elk were right next to the cabin.
Look at that, that one just walked out from the cabin. They're in cowboy, they were inside the cowboy camp cover.
But by watching them, we learned where they would likely come out that evening, and we let them be relaxed and without the stress of hunting pressure. What we had done was set up what should have been an epic evening hunt, but it was still only 7 a.m.
We don't see anything that, needs to be chased right now. We got a couple other ideas and some spots that we're gonna head, maybe do a little hiking and see if we can get something, so.
We haven't hunted thousands of acres of pristine elk habitat that has hundreds of resident elk on it, and we weren't gonna waste any of that time. We were driving up the big canyon and rounded a corner in the road, and as so often happens, wouldn't you know, we run into a bunch of elk.
Warbine? You gotta be kidding me. Okay, the back one's a shooter. Okay. If we can get a shot at him.
And the lower group was a bachelor group of bulls, and sure enough, 2 of them were good 6x6s. They're 300 yards away on the hillside. There's no time for a stalk. They were right there. Nevin and I are looking over the bulls, and we get Ben locked into the best of the 6x6s, and then we did what you're supposed to let a shooter do best. Just shoot. The eliminator makes this shot easy. 2 button pushes, and you have an aiming point. Got him.
Shoot him again. Shoot him again. Nice ball.
The first shot was perfect, right through the lungs. The bull is dead on his feet.
Let me take him. Hold on. Right through that shoulder.
He's tough. Done, done, done.
Yeah, man, it was solid hits on each one of them.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Look at that other bolt. That other one's a nice 6-point stand up there.
The suppressor is what makes this situation so nice, because a gunshot didn't echo off the canyon and mountainsides and scare all the animals away. In fact, the last 6x6, when he got to the top of the hill, stood there and looked at us for a minute, and I could have easily dropped a second 6x6 on that mountainside. But this was Ben's moment. This was Ben's day.
Dude. Big bull, man. No doubt about that. Oh my gosh.
Got your New Mexico bull, Ben.
Yeah, buddy. That's incredible. Golly. I can't freaking believe this thing, man.
Hey, you know what though? You got to be the first one.
Yeah, kill it with the approach rifle.
Yeah.
First kill.
That's your first elk hunt.
Yes, yeah, he checked both of those. Yeah, 20 years, man. I've been wanting to kill one of these, and the anticipation this week has just been. I'm literally in shock right now. I can't believe it. I was starting to think I might go home with this tag in my pocket, being that guy. But man, Steve, that's incredible.
We drug that bull down off the mountain and loaded it on the flatbed, and now Ben's headed back home with a freezer full of elk steaks and a 6x6 rack to hang on the wall to remember this hunt by forever. Now me, I've still got a day and a half left on my elk tag, and on this ranch, that's more than enough time to get it done.
This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures has been sponsored by Marathon Seat Covers. We've got you covered. This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures is sponsored by Silencer Shop. Look for a kiosk dealer near you.
Ben's killed his bull, made a great shot, and he's on his way home. And I've got a day and a half left in my elk hunt before my tag expires. So this year I showed up with a gun that I was very comfortable with, only to find out that there was a brand new Bergara rifle that was almost done being built for me. And in the middle of Ben's hunt, they FedEx delivered it to the ranch. Now I've got this rifle, the new Bergara Premier Series HMR Pro in 6.5 Creedmoor with no scope on it. I've never fired it before, and I don't know how quickly I'm gonna be able to get this gun sighted in and comfortable with it. So during Ben's hunt in the middle of the day, I was going to the range and getting it sighted in, and let's just say things went a little bit better than I could have ever imagined. I gotta tell you, it was a no-brainer for me. I knew that I had to hunt with this rifle and be the first person to ever take the Bergara HMR Pro into the field. Now, I just needed to go out and find a good bull.
Running a little bit late this morning. All the elk came down off the top of the mountain up there last night, down the far side of this ridge and into the big meadows. We're trying to move in and get in front of them this morning. Get a look at that bull that was way up on the skyline last night. Keep your fingers crossed.
Next morning, Nevin and I had a talk, and we really felt like those elk were gonna come back to that meadow. We figured they would have got in there way after dark. Maybe they just moved late because they hadn't been pressured by us in the previous days. And we decided to park about 2 miles back and hike into the meadow. We didn't want the sounds of the vehicles and the crisp, cold mountain air to carry in there and spook them off. We really thought that if we snuck in there, we would find them. About halfway in, we got up on a knob and started glassing back toward the meadow, and sure enough, we could see a whole bunch of elk back there.
There's a bunch of elk about a mile down the valley, crossing and going up the hill.
We'll go check that area out after we look over this top.
Yeah, they've been hunted so long. This is early December. They've been hunting them since the 1st of October. Well, really September with the archery season. It's these elk, when the daylight is, comes, when the sun first rises, they get nervous about being in the open. They head for the oak brush. They want to get someplace in cover. We're trying to get there in front of them.
We could pick out one real good bull and knew that time was ticking on us. These elk don't stick around long. Once the sun comes up, they start making their way back to the bedding area, which is on the Sergeant's Wildlife Management area. And once they cross that fence line, they're off limits. So we had to take it up a notch, and we started high stepping it for the meadow. Closer and closer we got, we would stop, we would glass, and we saw fewer and fewer elk. I could still see one of the good bulls, but the closer we got, the fewer elk. And I really was worried that we were gonna run out of time. I got to about 1,000 yards away from the last bull. Still, that's twice the distance I want to shoot with this particular rifle and caliber, especially on a bull that size. Sure enough, by the time we got within rifle range, all the bulls were gone. The last of the cows and calves were feeding into the cover and the safety of the refuge. And sometimes that's just how it plays out. And I knew that these elk had gone to their bedding area on their own. This was their timeline. They weren't pressured. They didn't know we were there. And the evening hunt was set up once again to be epic. I really felt like they were gonna come back out. But hey, it's not even 7 o'clock in the morning yet. It's 10 or 12 degrees out. It's crisp and cold, and there are still elk on the move all over the property. So Nevin and I hiked back out to the trucks and made a plan that we were going to drive up the mountain to the spot we were heading originally when Ben killed his bull the day before.
That didn't quite work out.
This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures has been sponsored by Pendleton Ammunition. Loading bullets, one round at a time.
If you'd like to book your own guided big game hunting adventure, give my office a call. I will personally take your calls, answer your questions, and help you book the hunting or fishing trip of a lifetime.
Nevin and I were slowly working our way up the edge of a canyon and glassing, and we're not that far from where Ben had killed his bull the day before. And we were working. I mean, we knew that these elk were in these fingers somewhere, and sure enough, Nevin spotted a bull down the bottom, and all of a sudden, one bull became 2, became 4. Now there's 6 of them below us. As Nevin and I were looking these elk over, I'd almost convinced myself I was going to need to shoot that bull in the bottom. I had lots of time with him, but as we moved up a little closer and cleared some cover, we spotted another bachelor group of bulls up toward the top of the canyon, and a good 6-point was with them. The difference was I didn't have all the time in the world with these elk. This bull was about 30 yards away from making it into the heavy cover at the top of the canyon and dropping into the wildlife management area. Within minutes, this bull could be out of sight. I needed to act quick if I was going to get a shot at this one. I moved up, got to a point where I was somewhat clear of all the brush and obstructions in front of me, got the bull in the rifle scope, used the eliminator, ranged at 398 yards. At this point, what I need to do is focus on my aiming point. To make a good shot on a bull, you've got to get him shot through the vitals. But if I want him to drop right where he's at or not go very far, I need to also make sure that I break the offside shoulder. So I'm going to let this bull turn. It gets slightly quartering away from me. And the thing that's going through my mind the whole time is, this is a 6.5 Creedmoor. I don't have a lot of history or experience with this caliber, and I'm shooting a mere 143 grain bullet, 400 yards downrange, and I'm trying to anchor a 600 or 700 pound bull elk right where he stands. I've got to be focused.
Got him?
That's nice 6x6.
I think we found the bull hiding spot.
Yeah, I think they're all in one pocket, that's for sure. This one's better than that one that was down there.
Yeah, this one's good.
He went up to 398 yards, and I was getting frustrated, man. I gotta tell you, when you're just like pop, 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 you're trying to work and you got brush in your view and it's just like tree limbs, and he's the last morning of your hunt. You just want to get a nice 6x6 bull, and Nevin put you on him. Good call, good call. Everybody can say what they want about the 6.5 Creedmoor. Some people love it, some people hate it. But it just a few feet short of 400 yards, that bull went down.
You still think that the 6.5 Creedmoor is too light for elk? That bull dropped so hard he left a dent in the ground. I am so impressed with that bullet. Granted, I'm not just shooting any bullet. We're shooting a 143 grain ELDX bullet. We developed a load at Pendleton Ammunition that is perfect for hunting, and in my opinion, it's absolutely the only bullet that we should be hunting elk with when we're hunting with a 6.5 Creedmoor. I am overly impressed with the performance of that cartridge and bullet and rifle combination.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Hey, thanks again, man. Good call on coming in here.
There's a lot of bulls in here this morning.
Oh, how many do you think there was? A dozen? At least? They're just, every time we looked under a tree limb, another one coming up, another one coming up.
This one's not, this is just a good solid 6-point elk. You know, he's not as big as the one Ben got. But hey, last day of your hunt, to be blessed to get a 6-point bull, all means, drop the hammer. This has been a good hunt. This ranch has been good to me. A lot of memories from here. One more memory.
We got real fortunate. That bull dropped right where I wanted him to. We were able to park the trucks just 400 yards uphill from where he was at. And Nevin, he decided he was going to do the butchering, so I took care of the packing. And as he pulled quarters off, I carried him up the mountain. And within a couple hours time, we had the 6-point bull on the flatbed of the truck, and we were on our way off the mountain. And now I have another special elk hunting memory from one of the most amazing places to hunt elk on the entire planet. This is why I hunt here. This is why I book my clients here. In fact, if you'd like to book your own hunt and come to this place and make your own memories, give my office a call. We'll take your calls, answer your questions, and help you book the hunting or fishing trip of a lifetime. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for this week's show. But please remember to join us again next week for another exciting episode of Steve's Outdoor Adventures.